What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Gaming Without Parole. Sitting across from me this week and every week, my Catholic school cohort. That's probably not true.
No.
Desra.
And sitting across from me is Brian Paul.
The antithesis of Catholic school.
Yeah, I didn't do the Catholic school thing at all.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
And
Nope.
neither one of us turned out normal.
I had some friends who did, but yeah.
Yeah. It's not good for you.
Eh.
Public school's not good for you either. There is no school that's good for you.
Without Parole Game stance, school is bad.
Yeah. Drop out. Start a YouTube channel. Nice.
Don't do that.
Des, we're going to talk about one of my favorite genres of games today.
Wonder Woman games.
Oh, sweet. Should we talk about that? Because that sounds way better than what we're going to do.
I don't really have a list. There aren't any.
Why is it
No.
just porn?
Yeah. Ooh,
Nice.
sorry, wrong tab. Yeah, actually, we're not going to... although Wonder Woman kind of got us thinking, it's like, hey, why don't we talk about games with a female protagonist?
Yeah.
Because actually, some of my favorite games, in all honesty, do happen to have female protagonists.
Yeah, I was completely lying. This is not my favorite genre of game.
Oh.
And in fact, when a game gives you the option of playing as a male or female, I mean, especially back in the day, that was your only option. You're like, this character, boy, girl. Always pick the boy.
Okay.
Whenever I create a character,
Yep.
I always make a guy.
All right.
What do you do?
Honestly, I flip the other way, which is odd.
Indeed.
I usually play a female character just because, I don't know, I like to.
For me, it's something that I like to relate to my character.
Mm-hmm.
I am a guy.
Yeah.
I'm a dude. I make a dude, except he's like the better version of me. He's like all muscly and he's like,
Right.
Like super skinny and he's like real talented and like, has a successful YouTube channel. And that's a slider on most BioWare games.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Success
I didn't
of
know
your YouTube
that.
channel.
Oh, interesting. Patreon.
Yeah, he's rich. My avatar.
Yeah, and I guess for me, there's a little more escapism involved, and so I guess maybe I'm playing it that way. More often, I just like the sort of tweaking at the playing a female character in a game that's, even though they give the option of being male or female, really it's a male-designed storyline.
And don't get me wrong, like I understand most gamers, I think, or most guy gamers, if they're going to play a 60-hour epic adventure, they'd like to see something on the screen that's easy on the eyes.
There is that.
I get it.
That, yeah.
Yeah, no surprises here.
No.
All right, so without messing around too much longer, do you want to take us away with your first game?
Yeah. So, I mean, apart from the comments we just made, I was trying to think of games where it actually mattered that it was a female protagonist. We talked about games where you could just, cookie cutter, drop in any gender, any whatever identity person in the game, and it would not change the story or your options at all.
Right.
It was, so I thought of one that is one of my favorite games of all time, especially of, a couple of generations ago, and I think it falls into this. This is 2003's Beyond Good and Evil. It came out for everything.
Yeah.
PS2, Windows, Xbox, GameCube. Yeah, pretty much if you could play a game on it in 2003, you could play Beyond Good and Evil.
What did you play it on?
GameCube.
Me too.
Yeah. Yep.
It was so good.
It was great. So if you're not familiar with this is the story of Jade, an independent photojournalist in the wonderful world of Hillies. This really kind of idyllic sort of island world. It's science fiction-y, but there is a kind of very laid back and beautiful environment to it. Unfortunately, this idyllic world is under attack by these aliens called the DOMs, DOMZ. And they basically open up these portals, bad things drop from the sky, and they either kidnap people or convert them into slaves, and everything's awful. Jade lives with her friend / pigman Paige. Yeah, that's what he is. He's a pigman.
He's the character I remember most from the game. I remember him more than Jade.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely he stands out. One of the things that actually makes this game great is the voice acting, the characterization. It very much feels like a living, breathing world.
Absolutely.
As much as the hard work could do in those days. You both live in a lighthouse where you've basically taken care of kids who have been orphaned by these DOMS attacks.
This is bringing back all sorts of great feelies.
Yeah, no, it's great. And the world is kind of trying to be saved or protected by this group called the Alpha Sections, this sort of militaristic group who's kind of taken over and like, we're going to protect you from the DOMs by instilling martial law. So being that your main character is an independent photojournalist and being that the name of the game is Beyond Good and Evil, guess who the bad guys are?
No surprises.
Yeah, nothing really surprising there. I'm not going to get too much into the plot because you should just go ahead and play this game if you haven't.
Yeah, and it might be a little bit generic story, but it's really well crafted.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
well told, and like all the plot points hit at the right time. There's a good pacing to this narrative. I really enjoyed that. Like I don't play a lot of games for story these days, but that was one that definitely you should.
I would say in many ways, the story is almost more important than the gameplay itself. If you want to get nuts and bolts, it's a third-person action platformer. There's some stealth elements. There's some driving. Actually, there's a hovercraft. So, like I said, these are it's an island world. So the way you get from island to island is your little hovercraft. What?
I just don't want to jump the gun and talk about something you were going to talk about.
All right. And so you have a couple weapons. You have a staff. You've got these disc throwers. Eventually you get a spaceship called the Beluga.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of cool. And basically you can upgrade all your weapons and your ships by earning money. And you earn money by either doing jobs for people or taking pictures with your camera.
The part I didn't want to jump the gun on.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So you can take pictures, of animals and all that. But a little pro tip, if you haven't figured this out, take pictures of the bosses during boss battles. You earn insane amounts of money for that.
Yeah.
And the money is important because, and the money and another currency called pearls, because you need to upgrade your ships in order to get to other levels of the world. You know? So if you want the story to continue on, you've got to upgrade your hovercraft so you can get over to that place. As far as kind of some background stuff, Ansel, the Michael Ansel, the creator of
Michel Ansel.
Michel, sorry.
Hey, he's French.
French
Ubisoft.
and
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, French and I don't get along very well. I mean, the French as a people, I'm a big fan of. The French, the language, my tongue doesn't do.
Got it.
Yeah.
Right.
Espanol, that's easy. But, I'm sorry.
I'm half Michel Ansel.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I can't speak a word.
So he's the creator of Rayman. The Rayman series, and he basically came into this because he wanted to take a break from Rayman, try something different. He wanted to basically do an open world kind of exploration game was his goal. He was inspired by two main things for this game: the films of Miyazaki.
Oh, nice.
Which we've talked about before, and you can definitely, you hear that, it's like, oh yeah, I can totally see that inspiration, and the post 9/11 world. He really wanted to talk about what it was like and living in this kind of environment of fear and mistrust and whatnot.
They really nailed the I know this was pre 9/11, but man, Big Brother is certainly watching in this game.
Oh no, this is post 2003.
No, I'm saying I'm like my reference to Big Brother.
Oh yeah,
is definitely pre 9/11. But
yes.
Yeah, I wasn't getting the Homeland Security vibe from this game when I played it, but I should have been, obviously.
Yeah.
I was getting the Big Brother is watching vibe from 1984.
Well, I mean, same idea.
Yeah. By the way, I was just informed that this is a comedy podcast, so I'm doing my best for you.
Hey.
No, not really. I'm not doing my best.
So yeah, 3 years of development to get this thing out.
Which at the time, that's a long development cycle.
And part of it is because with his plans for this big open world exploration, and originally Jade was much younger, she was a teenager. They kind of showed it at E3, and there was not a great reception. So he went back and retooled it. And one thing he realized, he wanted that open world exploration thing until he played Wind Waker. And he's like, oh, that can be really boring. And to be fair, as much as I love Wind Waker, and I do, there are some times when you're on that stupid boat, it's like, okay, yes, I know I have to get to that island, let's go. Yeah. And so they gutted huge portions of exploration type gameplay from this, and they aged up Jade to eventually become the game that we know now.
Damn it, Zelda. You screwed up everything. The being on the boat was sometimes fun, but a lot of times just like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Forever.
And I think they made the right choice with this. It did kind of, change his original idea, but I think what they ended up with is a much tighter plot and better off. And the last part I wanted to bring up was this was always intended to be part one of a trilogy. Unfortunately, it did not do well. Marketing on this, Ubisoft, North America's CEO, he said marketing this was one of his worst decisions They were more concentrated on Sands of Time at the time, and they really didn't take the time to figure out, okay, who do we market this for? How do we sell it? Because if you think about it, this was at a time when, as much as any time, they're hammering graphics. Look how amazing this is. Yeah. This is a very cartoony, very simple-looking game in a lot of ways. So it's like, all right, who do we sell? Well, but we can't sell it to kids because it's kind of a darker sort of story. It's a little mature.
It's technically a very impressive game. Despite the cartoon world, it runs at a solid clip as far as frame rate goes.
Yep.
And there is these big open areas. It's not open world per se, but it is big open areas, and it all runs really great. It's a technically great game in my book, infinitely better than Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, which.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was supposed to be 3 games. The other 2 were canceled and had been in various levels of development and not being developed. In 2008, there was a trailer for the sequel sort of released, and then in early 2009, there was some leaked game footage that came out.
Oh, I never
looks
saw
pretty
that.
good. It actually looks pretty good. Yay! See?
Oh,
interesting.
I gotta go find it.
Yeah. Very different change in tone for the series. The official word right now, as far as of this recording, it is a go. It is in active development right now, but Ubisoft has come out and announced that they will not announce anything at E3 this year.
Huh. Well,
so
I guess we'll find out, won't we? Because this will air Friday,
right?
And then we'll know right after the
Don't
weekend.
You make a liar out of
if
me.
Ubisoft is full of it or not.
Oh, and one other thing, you can play this on modern day consoles. In 2011, an upgraded higher HD version came out for the PS3 and the Xbox 360, but you can also get those on Xbox One and PS4 as well.
Can you?
Yes, as far as this, what this says, you could. But
I downloaded it on PlayStation 3 and I missed one trophy early on in the game. I was real upset about that, but I played through to the end anyway. I was way more of a trophy whore during those days. Amazing game. It was totally worth playing through again. If you have a chance, play through it for the first time or possibly even the second time.
Yeah, no, I couldn't recommend a game more strongly.
Yeah, I know we're going to have to talk about this at some point. We're going to have to make a full episode about it. But, man, all these great, really well done artistic games, that are definitely not designed for, the hardcore, Call of Duty audience. People who want a nice story, something with a little bit of heart, something that's more artistic. This Okami.
Oh my God.
Right?
That was actually my short list for this episode.
Okay.
Because she's female.
No, she is. Yeah. You're right. Oh, well, I'm changing my next game then because Okami's one of the best games ever made.
Yeah.
They just don't sell well. They have real hard time marketing these kind of games.
Yep.
We need to make an episode all about those games. The best games that never sold, deserved a sequel, etc. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Next week. Or the week after. So I'm taking a different approach to this episode than Des.
Okay.
Because we don't talk enough when we're not here. And so we didn't plan this out. But we did talk a little bit earlier today saying, hey, anytime we come up with a topic, in my book, whether it be why we love 2D platformers, why we love first-person shooters, any of these genres of games, for me, it's just an excuse to talk about these 3 games. Here's 3 games. I'm just giving it's an excuse. But very seldom do I actually talk about the aspect that the title of the episode revolves around.
Oh, fair enough.
It's why we love first-person shooters. Well, we named some first-person shooters that we love, but we didn't say
first-person shooters.
We didn't say why do we love this game as a first-person shooter, right? We didn't say why does this make this better. So when this topic came around, I was like, oh, I want to talk about this game, and this game. I was like, why does having a female protagonist make these games better? And I don't honestly have much of an answer for any of these games.
Okay.
So I took a totally different approach and just picked 3 games with female protagonists that I wanted to talk about. First and foremost, Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve is so good. Look how good it is. There's probably some Statue of Liberty crap happening back there. New York City montages and snow. I think there's snow.
Snow?
Yeah, this came out in...
Informer.
No. Don't do that. Copyright strike.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. This came out in September of 1998, so you know what that means. PlayStation 1 era. Square Soft. I had to double check. They weren't Square Enix.
Square Graphics.
Well, they were very polygonal. If there's that.
Polygonal.
And actually,
but we don't judge.
Well, no, we don't judge because actually this. So, two forces to be reckoned with during the PlayStation 1 era were Capcom doing Resident Evil and Square doing Final Fantasy games. Yep. So far, Resident Evil 1, I believe, and Final Fantasy 7 had both been out at this point. Mm-hmm. Now, somehow Parasite Eve is those two games squished together into one. So Squaresoft at this point was definitely known as like the king of RPGs.
Right.
And Capcom doing survival horror brought like zombies and like scary stuff back into the mainstream. Mm-hmm. And so Square's like, well, we're going to do that too.
Okay.
So
I can do that.
So that's what they did.
Yeah.
They totally did it. And in fact, they used pre-rendered backgrounds.
Okay.
And polygonal characters.
Like you do.
And so it actually aged fairly well. I mean, it still looks like a PlayStation 1 game, but it looks better than most PlayStation 1 games, that's for sure. The plot revolves around a girl named Aya Brea. This is based on a Japanese novel of the same name, Parasite Eve. This is served as basically a pseudo-sequel to the novel.
This is something to do, not Parasite, the manga series, right?
No, totally different.
All right, totally
That's with a Y, right?
Yeah.
Totally different.
Okay.
There eventually became a manga based on this, and I think a movie too.
Okay.
Madonna starred in it.
Really?
I'm just making stuff up. Are you? I didn't. I'm checking to see if he's
totally
listening. I'm checking to see if you're listening.
I know. I mean, Madonna has not had a good record in movies.
I actually think that's true, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not that good at making stuff up. So, are you still listening? So, yeah, I'll tell you this. If you're interested in getting into Parasite Eve, buy this game for PlayStation 1. You can definitely get it on the PlayStation Store, well, at least for the PlayStation 3, or the PSP or PlayStation Vita. You're able to download PlayStation 1 games that way. Just get it. It's probably like $5-10 or something like that. It's so interesting because it's Square's first M-rated game ever.
Really?
And boy, does it deserve it.
Yeah.
The whole plot of this is... Well, let me take you through the opening scene. Okay? Because it's too hard to just tell about the whole story. It's like about crazy mitochondria. I'm not kidding you this time.
Okay.
This is real. So
when did this come out?
1998.
Crazy mitochondria. I wonder if George Lucas was playing this as he was kicking around ideas for...
It's totally possible. This was surprisingly popular. Metachlorians?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it.
Yeah, they got it way before I did. Most people do. So the opening scene. Aya Brea is in this long black dress and she's going on a date.
Okay.
She's at the opera.
Sure.
Beautiful, everything. She's sitting there and this girl gets on stage and she's doing the opera thing, right?
We call it singing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we call it whatever you want. But I'll call the next part awesome because people start getting caught on fire and spontaneously combusting.
Good show.
Yeah, the best, right? This is the best opera I've ever seen. I've only seen this opera, by the way. It's the best and worst. Now,
have you seen The Fifth Element? Squid?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if that counts, I've totally seen operas. I've seen that a million times. So the actress on stage, or the singer, as you call her in the technical terms, is named Melissa. And she gets on stage, starts floating and doing weird things as people are like, combusting and exploding and people are running out of the theater on fire.
Okay, she's like into it?
Oh, she's like obviously the reason behind it all.
Gotcha.
Right? She starts, I think she like lifts up in the air and she's like still singing the whole time, and like the whole theater is like coming down in flames around her and it's amazing. But you, the main character, Aya Brea, the only one not catching on fire.
Oh.
Your poor date. It didn't go well. And so it turns out you're a cop.
Okay.
You pull your gun out of somewhere. Right, and you start chasing this girl like down behind the stage to the dressing rooms, and all sorts of craziness happens. And I'll tell you, like the first enemy you encounter, I believe, is a rat, and then the crazy CG kicks in because Square and everybody loved their CG at the time.
Yeah.
And this rat transforms into like the grossest, bloodiest like monster ever. Now, point is, it's a weird game. It's disgusting. It's definitely bloody. It's definitely gory. But it's well told, and it takes place in New York City, and which is strange because most games at the time not really taking place in
a real place. Yeah,
absolutely. And in fact, the world map is the city.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're traveling between like different locations and stuff, like some of them real life locations, and it's this awesome cross, like I already said, between Resident Evil and Final Fantasy VII. But it's really the best of both worlds because it controls like a Resident Evil game. I know I don't want to hear it, and yeah, no, I'm actually pretty sure that I don't remember how it controls. It's got tank controls. I don't think so, but it's got the survival horror elements, and it's got this awesome active time battle fighting system.
Okay.
So that rat transforms and suddenly you're in battle with it. And the cool thing is a lot of Squaresoft games at the time would do this weird loading screen where like in Final Fantasy VII you'd be like on these pre-rendered environments.
Right.
And then like the screen would smear and but that would be really the loading screen. And then you'd be in a 3D battle arena and you'd be fighting these things in like turn-based. This doesn't happen with this game.
Okay.
The screen kind of like does this like kind of fade to not black, but the whole thing kind of goes black and white for a second, and then you're in the same room that you were in, and you're fighting right there.
Okay.
There's no load screens between anything.
Is it a turn-based kind of battle?
That's the interesting part about the battle.
Okay.
Is that it is turn-based. It's like that active time meter.
Yeah.
Right, where you're only allowed to do your action once the bar is full.
Right.
But the entire time you're playing, you get to run around the room.
Oh.
And so you get to position yourself like away from the enemy so that when it's their turn to attack, you're out of range.
Okay.
And then you also like when since you're a cop and you have like all sorts of guns and stuff, you find yourself in a good position to like hit somebody from a good vantage point.
Because I was going to say I could forgive the tank controls.
Yeah.
As long as like went into tournament, because my problem has always been tank controls, and now I actually have to control it while I'm fighting too, and
I'm pretty sure it's not tank controls because I feel like this is like the Final Fantasy VII engine.
Yeah.
And so running around in those environments, I think it feels pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah. There's so much to talk about with this game. And the one thing I discovered today about this game that I played this when I was younger, and I feel like I want to say I played it a few times, but this game actually has a pretty amazing X game, what they used to call New Game Plus. And what happens is once you've beaten the game, you get all your bonus points and all of your weapons that you've gotten throughout the game given to you from the start. And this new place on the map opens up. It's the Chrysler Building.
Oh.
And it's got 77 floors full of like random items and enemies. And the final boss, this is brand new for the New Game Plus. It's Aya's older sister, Maya. She's the final boss.
Oh.
So it's like
hey,
this.
Sis,
yeah,
where
right?
you been?
Who knew?
Was she part of the plot the whole game? Or she just kind of shows up?
When I discovered this today, I was like, it doesn't sound familiar. But again, it's been, almost 20 years since I played this game. Because I played it when it was brand new, and I guess I haven't played it since. But man, I remember it being phenomenal. It's definitely one of my favorite PlayStation 1 games ever.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And just to check in before you guys get to us, Madonna tried to acquire the rights to Parasite Eve, and Square said,
Oh, that would happen.
So it never actually happened.
So she didn't star in it or nothing.
Yeah, there was a rumor that she was going to, but it never actually. At least as of 1999. So
I'm sure someone left a comment already.
Yeah.
Feel free to edit that, sir or madam.
So that kind of actually that Game Plus sort of brings me to my next game, because this actually does something similar.
Oh, cool.
When you said a game with a female protagonist, the first game I thought was Beyond Good and Evil. Yeah. The second game I thought of was Alice, American McGee's Alice. And I was like, oh my God, I want to talk about this game. The game that launched 1,000 Hot Topic t-shirts. It was such a 90s game. It was painfully 90s, but it was awesome. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. I'll go find, you know what? Gosh, I don't have a system I can play this on, because I actually have my original CD-ROMs. Yes, CD-ROMs. But I don't actually have a computer in my house right now that has a optical drive.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, oh, I can't actually play this. So I did a little digging around and found out that if you bought the sequel, then you could get the original as a download. Like, okay, great. I'm sure the sequel's crap. Let me, I'll just download that. I'll play the original. And wow, it was so bad.
The original.
The original, yeah. It was just like, it was one of those, my nostalgia for the game massively overpowered the reality, and I still stand by the idea, and even some of the voice acting were really great, but just the moving, the combat, just jumping, everything was broken. And what I remembered as being these really lush, interesting environments were really just bland and awful.
Yeah, I remember seeing the advertisements and the previews, and I want to say Computer Gaming World back in the day, and I was super duper jealous that like I didn't have a PC that could run it at the time.
Yeah,
I think at that point I'd already jumped ship to consoles.
Well, and here's the thing too, I did have a PC, and I always assumed that the jankiness and the weird was because I had to like drop down my settings and all that to make the game run because I had a crappy system. Well, here I am playing it on an Xbox 360, however many years later,
right.
And it's just as bad. It's like, oh, okay, it's just a bad game. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not going to be able to talk about Alice, but let me at least try the sequel. Oh my god. This was everything the original should have been. So this came out in 2011 by Spicy Horse Games. Spicy Horse is a Chinese developer. EA is the publisher, but it's
Spicy Horse.
Spicy Horse. And American McGee was actually the developer. So he worked with Spicy Horse to bring this thing to life.
Is anyone else hungry?
Yeah. It's a third-person action platformer. Plot-wise, if you play the original Alice, some of this will make sense, but you don't have to, and I wouldn't. Basically, the Alice we know has gotten out of Wonderland, but her parents' home burned down. Her entire family died under suspicious circumstances, and suspicious meaning people think Alice did it. She spent most of her childhood in psychiatric wards and orphanages, and this kind of happens at that point. For whatever reason, we won't get into it now, she has to go back to Wonderland. She finds out that it's been corrupted and taken over and it's all falling apart. So she needs to go back into Wonderland to figure out what's destroying Wonderland and try to regain her memories so she can figure out what happened in the fire, save her sanity, save Wonderland all at once. That's the plot. As far as gameplay goes, again, everything that was wrong with the original Alice, this one does right. Just the even from the animation of her jumping, like she does a jump and she has like a double, triple jump thing where her dress pops out. Well, it pops out and like you get this you see the little flutter of wind and kind of butterflies and all that. Her weapons are fantastic. She's got the Vorpal blade from the original game. She's got a pepper grinder, pepper mill, and that's useful because there's actually these pig snouts hidden throughout the game. You have to use the pepper mill to shoot them, and they unlock secret areas. So you can get what are the collectibles? They are memories and bottles. So there are memories and bottles hidden throughout every level. If you're a 100%er kind of person, these are the stuff you need to find. There's a really cool shrinking mechanic. So at any point you can hit the shoulder button, Alice will shrink, and all of a sudden there is platforms and hints that are written on the walls that suddenly become visible. And so there are hidden areas for that as well. I don't want to go on too much here.
The art style for me, I'm sorry
yeah.
to derail what you were saying. The art style is just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this is a generation of consoles that like suddenly started having some real power behind them.
Yeah.
And so they could finally pump out these worlds that were believable but also very abstract.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first generation where like you don't really see polygon seams anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember just loading it up and being like, this is such an amazing looking world.
Yeah.
And the contrast between there are these, if I remember correctly, these flashbacks that are like almost like sepia toned, versus like Wonderland, which is like ridiculously like colorful and like all sorts of crazy and abstract. Yeah,
there are three main kind of storytelling modes. One is the kind of sepia black and whitey toned where Alice is walking around her real world Victorian England. And that's, you're basically just walking around. A lot of your platforming abilities are gone. This is just, I'm walking around to get the story.
Like listening to conversations and stuff.
Exactly right. Yeah. And there's like just this side of quick time events, but it isn't kind of important to see the story. There are interstitial scenes, which are like paper cutouts.
Yes.
And it's one of those like, oh, this looks stupid. Why they can do so much more? It's like, well, yes, they could do so much more, but they've chosen deliberately to do this paper doll style pay attention. And then finally, there's the actual platforming gaming. Each level has its own aesthetic. The actual Wonderland, the first one you start out is, like you said, gorgeously colorful. Then there's a very steampunky, this came out in 2011, so the height of steampunk, steampunky sort of Mad Hatter level, and so on. There's a couple things, though, there. I think that they've sort of mastered what it feels like, or what their audience feels like to play a platforming kind of game. There's one mechanic called hysteria. When you're fighting and your character gets down to like 1/4 of one health bar, you have the option to hit a trigger button, and all of a sudden, Alice turns black and white. She screams, the screen cracks, and for like 30 seconds, you're completely invulnerable and can just lay waste to your opponent. So, that frustrating thing, you're like, oh my god, I'm almost going to beat the boss, I'm so close! And then you die because this does away with that. It gives you a chance to say, you know what, you were close, see what you can do with 30 seconds. And it's great. It kind of like cuts away that like suck out feeling like, oh, I was just about to beat this boss and I died at the last second.
Without feeling too much like a rage meter.
Right, yeah.
Like building it up, and but this is like a last chance ditch effort.
Exactly right. And it's totally optional. You don't have to do it,
right,
which is interesting. Nice. And there was one mode I was talking to you about that there's this section where you just overwhelmed. It's very, very difficult. It's not a boss battle, it's just a lot of kind of like the mini bosses. Really, I was pounding away at this for way longer than I should have, and it's super frustrating. I finally made it, and then does a cutscene, and like, oh crap, that was just the prep for the big boss. And sure enough, this huge mechanical thing comes out, and I see the two characters that I've been sort of fighting with the whole time getting on this big robotic monster, and it even does it's like, okay, this is how it's going to attack me. And then because it's all janky and built badly, it just slumps forward. And I laughed out loud. It's like, oh, they totally read exactly the emotional state you were going to be in as a player and catered to that. Play this game. It's $20, I think.
New.
And this one is absolutely, you can Xbox One, you can download it. You do get the original Alice. But
at least you get to try it out and see that we're not joking.
I really think this is one of the hidden gems of that generation. It just kind of, I think people got burned by the original Alice. They saw this, like, oh great, like another cash grab by EA. But this, double thumbs up.
So let's talk a little bit about the planning of this episode. When we first brought up this topic, we were basically said, okay, in the introduction, we're going to say, hey, we're not going to talk about Samus. We're not going to talk about Lara Croft. We're not going to talk about, all the staple females in video gaming.
Because you played those games.
So I want to talk about Lara Croft.
Okay. Yeah.
Lara Croft is, she was instrumental in bringing 3D gaming to consoles, especially.
No question.
I remember, especially in Electronic Gaming Monthly, there were these cross sections, like these comparisons between, hey, Super Mario 64 for N64 and Tomb Raider for PlayStation 1.
Got guns and guns.
It was like these are the two new 3D games that let you explore your environments and I think most people, when they looked at those screenshots, were like, oh man, the PlayStation 1's got it all over the N64.
Yeah.
And we know which one aged better. Spoilers, it's not Tomb Raider. But Tomb Raider began life, I think it got a lot of attention because of these kind of comparisons. This is PlayStation 1's, game where you get to explore, go wherever you want, do whatever you want, explore these tombs. Yeah, no, it's really not. But I think it gained so much popularity upon release because of the main character, Lara Croft.
Yes.
It's hard to talk about Lara Croft in retrospect.
Okay.
Because at the time I felt like these are quality games. Who cares if she's like a sex symbol? They were.
Yeah, it was tough. Like that was at the time, especially if you're trying to even pretend you're a little bit sensitive to the massive misogyny in the gaming industry. To pretend it's like, Lara Croft is a great game. No, not for that reason. It's a great game. No, come on, guys. Can we not have this argument?
But unfortunately, the other side of that argument became a lot more effective, I guess, because IDOS, Crystal Dynamics, whoever was behind, they started pumping out these games annually.
Yeah.
And so the quality of the games very quickly went downhill, and they spent a lot more time focusing on making Lara Croft look better in each game, adding polygon count to her, but not really fleshing out the gameplay or making the gameplay better or making the environments better or making the story something worth listening to or watching or playing. And so eventually they were sort of a victim of themselves.
Yeah.
So Tomb Raider slowly declined over the years, and there were some ups and downs. Like, don't get me wrong, like, it wasn't all bad. After the PlayStation 1 era, I mean, it was real bad. PlayStation 2, Angel of Darkness was... Okay, I know there's some people out there that are wrong, but this game's garbage.
Then there was a movie.
Oh, there were 2 movies, and they were both awful. And if you don't think those are awful, what are you even watching those for? Now, eventually there was Underworld and Legacy and some games that sort of brought the franchise up a little bit. But finally, they said in 2000 something, they decided, I want to say 2013. For some reason, I didn't write it down here. 2000, right there, 2013. They rebooted the whole franchise.
Yes.
With a new Lara Croft.
Yeah.
And in this, I don't need to talk about the game very much. I think most of us know what the game's all about. They took a lot of cues from Uncharted. They kind of ripped off Uncharted, but in my book, they out Uncharted.
Okay.
It's a better game all around. There's a leveling up mechanic. It's kind of a Metroidvania where you get certain items and suddenly other parts of the world open up because now you can scale walls or whatever it takes, and it's just really really well crafted and well done. And I think from start to finish, the story's really well told. Not what I want to talk about.
Okay.
I want to talk to you today about our opinions on the redesigned Lara Croft.
Sure. Well, to me, I think what they did with this is the same mistake that they've made with Samus, is that you had this strong, independent, laughably unrealistic, badass woman.
Yeah.
Okay. But just as laughably unrealistic as Indiana Jones or Batman or anything like that. Just this super strong, badass character. Mm-hmm. And that's what I liked about Lara Croft. She was the millionaire adventuress who just kind of came in guns blazing and was awesome because she was awesome. And there aren't many female characters like that. Then what they were like, well, that's not believable. So to add depth to her character, we're going to have add this backstory of, abuse and, all these bad things happened to me when I was young.
You really think... and I do think that when they relaunched it, they're just kind of like wiping the slate clean. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think she's eventually going to become this millionaire heiress kind of thing.
Yeah.
But my question for you is, you said that's what I like about her. Like, you like that she's like this millionaire. Like, you like that she's like unbelievable. You like that. My thing about it was that I could certainly not relate to her because she's a girl.
Sure.
But more so, I could never relate to somebody who's just got an infinite amount of money and can explore the world, and she's kind of got this like air of like arrogance about her.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I'm not rooting for you. I'm a little bit hoping that like you fall into like a big spike pit. And that never happened in the movies because. Right. Well, the world needs Angelina Jolie.
Well, for me, I think it makes it an interesting character. It's something unique. I mean, how many times do you see a female character like that who is just the baddest ass person in the room? Period. Do you relate to Batman when you play a Batman game?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With your $multi-million and your,
Oh no, because he just keeps like little boys around.
And I walked right into that one.
I mean, like a mile away. Yeah. Who didn't see it? No, I mean, yeah, I don't relate to Batman.
Yeah.
But Batman, he doesn't have. I know for being a millionaire, he's sort of down to earth. And this isn't going well at all. He's like, I have a Batcave. I'm Batman.
Right.
No, he's not down to earth at all. But his personality is likable. Right, because even though he puts on a show for his rich millionaire friends, it's a show.
Yeah,
and he's got to pretend to be this person so that at night he can go save Gotham City. He's like he's fighting the good fight. He's doing the right thing. In all because his parents that suffered a horrible tragedy. there are likable elements in his personality, and he's the good guy.
Right.
Lara Croft is like she's kind of just a spoiled brat. I think the reason I think the new Lara Croft is likable is because they stripped away all that extraneous like millionaire nonsense, and they replaced it with like this young this passionate adventurer. Like she's got an adventurer's spirit, and she's out on this thing, and she kind of accidentally falls into like this island of mystery, and she's never hurt anybody in her life. She's never, I don't think, shot a gun. But the first time, I think I spit on your computer. Yeah. The first time, I think she has to, early on in the game, like very, very early on in the game, she has to like kill a deer or something like that, because there's like this survival instinct stuff going on. She has to like eat to survive, and she like cries or something, like she like breaks down because because she just had to kill an animal, right? And unlike Uncharted, which suffers like all this ludonarrative dissonance, it's like while Nathan Drake's running around and being like ha ha ha, like spouting one-liners while he's killing dudes left and right.
Oh sure.
She is like she had to kill an animal, and she's like real upset about it. Yeah. Now let's be fair. That's the last time she's upset about killing anything in the game, and she kills like 3,000 people later on. Yeah. But at least it sets it up in the right way.
But here's the time where you get, I think the bad side of, if they relaunched Tomb Raider with a male character, and Lara Croft, let's say, do you think there would be the scene where he killed a deer and cried over it? Well,
no, because guys aren't stupid, emotional creatures.
Right. So there's my problem in a nutshell. Yeah. We have no problem with, Lara Croft being this independent, rich, wealthy, I'm going to go ahead and do all this, treasure hunting because I want to, but if it's Lara Croft, then she's going to have a backstory, and she's going to be sad about killing a deer. And it's, you can have emotional depth in your characters. I'm not saying that at all, but you're taking an established character and just like, well, now we need to nerf her.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Okay. Have you ever played Super Princess Peach on the DS?
No, I have not.
Okay, this is a game where you play as Princess Peach in a 2D platforming adventure. Okay, and all you do is basically like play on her emotions. Yeah, like if she cries, she can like grow crops, and if she's angry, then she can float. And it's like all these like literally her emotions are filling up on the bottom of the screen. It's like, Nintendo, what are you doing? Right. And so that's immediately what that brought to mind. I was like, wow, just like the worst of the worst when it comes to game developers. So I get it. I get it. But does that mean that I don't want to see the next Tomb Raider game starring Lara Croft? If he's a 15, 16-year-old boy, sign me up, then I will, then yes, I want to see, like, his emotional scars from, like, the very first time he had to kill somebody who was trying to kill him. Right. Yes, I want to see that. Just because the game developers wouldn't make Lara Croft an emotional, protagonist, doesn't mean I don't want that, right? So, boo-hoo game developers, but listen to us. We want believable characters.
And I think to bring it back to, and that's kind of a point I didn't make when we first talked about it, sort of, we're going along, so we want to wrap this up. Yeah. But Beyond Good and Evil, the Alice games, Alice is female because Alice is female. In Beyond Good and Evil, what Jade being a female character allows you to do is tell that same kind of story slightly differently. I think specifically with Beyond Good and Evil, if it was a male character, and Ansel did literally base it on his wife. If Jade was a male character, I think you'd get much more wrapped up in just the battle and the one-on-one against the others. Oh my gosh,
the Doms.
The Doms and the military guys. Yeah.
Whatever they're called.
I literally talked about this 10 minutes ago, and I cannot remember.
He's not feeling good. You should give him some credit for even really being here today.
I've got the Games Cast plague.
Oh, we've all been sick.
But because she's a female character, stereotypes or not, whatever, they do play a little bit more on her relationships. You do feel some of the sadness is like, oh my gosh, there's these orphans here because the adults have been killed. I mean, how many times in, name your game, do you actually deal with the results of the alien invasion? It's just like the aliens come in, they shoot up a bunch of places, I go fight the aliens, and that's it. Yeah. Here's a character whose like main motivation is getting money so she can help take care of the people who are being affected by the events of the game.
So, just to kind of wrap it up,
yeah,
why can't that be a male character? Because male characters aren't sensitive.
I think because the industry we love has a lot of damn catching up to do. Yeah. Just to be able to tell these kind of stories for whatever kind of gender the character is. I like these female protagonist games because, for good or ill, it allows the developers to tell a more nuanced story.
Yeah.
It'd be great if in 10 years having an episode, or in 5 years, in a year, having an episode like this wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Why do we care if it's a male or female protagonist? It doesn't matter, because they're still telling interesting stories no matter what. But we live in a world where it does matter.
And that said, I think I'm going to call this episode Why We Love Lara Croft.
Here's two white guys talking about gender politics in video games. No way that's going to go badly.
Can't wait to see the comments. All right. So screw honorable mentions. We took this into a different direction.
Portal goddamn 2. All right.
Oh, Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yep.
You got it all. There's nothing to say. Right. So for Gaming Without Parole, I'm Brian Paul.
I'm Lara Croft.
This is a comedy podcast. We'll see you next week.